Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we want to give our sponsors a shout out. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director or I've got a direct connection with, and I'm recommending them very highly to you. So take the next couple of minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. We want to thank Huddle for their support of the podcast. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to work for all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. Our coaches loved it, our parents, our kids loved it. You're going to love it too. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website and check out their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to show off your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, or simply tell your school's compelling story. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check them out today. We'd also like to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day for things like scheduling, uploading rosters, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Go to homecampus.com. They're going to do all of those things and more. They're going to do it better, they're going to do it faster, and they're going to give you a lot more time back in your schedule. That's homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. You know, kids are on social media today. Even their parents are on social media. And if you're not posting graphics of your teams and your athletes, you're really missing out. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to show you how to create world-class content in seconds. And it's so easy, even I can do it. Gipper is used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to thank SnapRaise. Have you been looking for a fundraiser? Well, stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. You're going to be glad that you did. We also want to say thank you to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We'd like to say thanks to the Ohio University Online Master's Program in Athletic Administration. This is an affordable 20-month online master's program that focuses exclusively on athletic administration. When you finish, you're going to have your master's, but you're also going to have 11 NIAAA leadership training courses to go towards your CAA. You're also going to be part of a nationwide graduate network with connections in athletics across the country. To get started, it's so easy. Just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. The Ohio University Online Masters. We'd also like to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. We used it for home games, of course, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile. Their customer service is just outstanding. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. Sidelineinteractive.com. And we want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but usually it's just the complainers and gripers, and that's only a small percentage of your student body and stakeholders. Athletic Surveys will connect you to them, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that support your program. And that information is tremendously valuable when you're talking to a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're kind of staying in Florida today, but we've got an East Coast flair, and it's one of our back to college episodes. We're going to be visiting with Jordan Fishman. Now, Jordan's at the start of her career, but I think you're going to be very interested to hear about it. She is a graduate of the Miami Country Day School, which is one of those schools in South Florida in my coaching career that we competed against on a regular basis. She's going to share a little bit about that. She's currently a student at Cornell University and again has a number of interesting ties in the world of athletics that I'm going to let her share. But Jordan Fishman, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and kind of delve into my career and my future and kind of what I want to do with my life.
Yeah. Well, again, when I saw your profile on LinkedIn, and again, there's a number of connections that we're going to go into, but let's go ahead and get started. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. We already talked about this. I want you to kind of focus on those high school days, but what's the Jordan Fishman origin story?
Definitely. So born and raised Miami Beach, most Miami person you'll ever meet, parents born and raised, grandparents born and raised. And so I actually started attending Miami Country Day in middle school. And second week of sixth grade, my brother, because the women's basketball team had just come off of winning a state championship. So my brother's like, Jordan, like, you need to go speak to Coach O, who's the head coach, try working out with them because they always would train in the off season. So that first week, I'm a sixth grader. I go into their practices and they're actually on the outdoor courts. And I was like super scared, but I just was thrown into it. And that's when I started training with them. And that's when I fell in love with basketball. And the assistant coach, Coach Carla Lewis, Coach Slim, he was also a trainer. So that's when I fell in love with basketball. I was training all the time. They would have 6 a.m. practices. I would go at 5 a.m., even though I wasn't on the team, and just train with them. And then seventh grade, they actually moved me up to varsity. And so like my star days were middle school, honestly. Like that's when I was an icon. And then seventh grade is when they moved me up to varsity just to get a feel for it and see kind of the rigor that actually goes into creating such an elite program like Miami Country still currently does. They just won another state championship. And so yeah, seventh grade I joined, won a ring that year. And then eighth grade I was officially on the team. And that's honestly, I'd say eighth grade, ninth grade was my prime. I actually sadly tore my ACL my first time ever skiing. And that's where it kind of opened up the door for me. Instead of basketball as an athlete, basketball as a career, because it made me realize that I always wanted to play college, but I was like, wait, maybe I've spent so much time in high school playing the sport. What if I spent that time contributing to those playing and helping them get NIL deals or kind of support them in their own careers? Because honestly, like I wasn't even that. I was an amazing shooter, but I wasn't that athletic. Like there was no basketball career for me at the end of the day, and I knew that. But I just always loved the sport, and like even throughout high school, we'd have 6 a.m. practice. I just was obsessed with the game. I'd get there at 5 a.m. But it was a very, very rigorous schedule to balance with high school because during the off season, for example, I would have school the full day and then we'd go and have our after school workout. And then straight from there, I'd go to travel basketball. And I wouldn't get home some nights until 10:30, 11 p.m. and then have an exam the next day. So kind of it really prepared me for the real world, honestly, and discipline and time scheduling and whatnot.
Hmm. Yeah, and again, I was down there in South Florida at a couple different schools, Palmer Trinity, for 6 years, and we did a lot of stuff with Miami Country Day. You and I've already talked about it. Still to this day, the athletic
Yeah.
director of Miami Country Day, Chuck Sennett, has been a guest on our podcast, continuing to get a lot of downloads. Share with our listeners a little bit. Um, Miami Country Day, it's a small school, but college prep, independent school, and also very successful athletic programs and a basketball program, a women's basketball program that I think had, a national footprint. What was that like? You alluded to it a little bit, but what was that like, balancing sports and just being a high school kid, along with the academic rigor? Looking back, how was that experience? What sort of memories do you have?
Definitely make college easy. I'll start off with that. It was just an incredible experience because we won nationals, we won so many state championships that I remember one year we were invited to the Phoenix Tournament of Champions, and it was just super incredible to even watch that game. One of our star players, Murao Alvarez, like made an N1 3 for us to like in the semifinals for us to progress forward. Seeing UConn star as he Fudd in person, and that was a super cool experience also. But all that good also entailed a lot of behind the scenes of crying and like the hard work that goes into it. I would be writing essays on planes, bus rides to the moment leading up to the game, maybe like 10 minutes before I put my textbook down, because for me, like I knew education was always going to be what got me to college, essentially. My grades, my extracurriculars, especially in high school, I think I put a lot of stress on myself. But but honestly, like I said, I just loved basketball so much. And I knew like my mom, like we talk about it to this day. Sometimes we would go to travel games, and in between like if there's an hour in between one game and the next tournament, my mom would actually sleep in the car because she worked full time, and she would drive me to these games like 50 minutes away from our house. So that was like her only time to sleep. And then I would be reading to her flashcards on the way home. So it was definitely like a hard balance. I think I had a great backing that she allowed me and she supported me to live this basketball life, and I'm forever grateful for that. And also Coach Slim, he was such a dedicated coach and trainer, and he still continues to train, and I'm super excited to see what his daughter to see her career progress, because she's super young and has an amazing form since she was 8 years old, like 7 years old. So she's going to be a phenomenal player. And his sister actually played for Miami Country Day as well, Shanice Lewis. She was actually just inducted to the Hall of Fame at Country Day. And her basketball IQ, I don't know if she learned it from him, but one of the best players to come through Miami Country Day program, along with Kelsey Marshall, actually, who I think she has I think she's the highest scorer actually, or made the most three pointers in U Miami history for women's basketball, something along those lines. But yeah, it's just incredible to learn from those vets, and now I want to like work with them and see their careers progress.
It's clear as you share your story, the love and the positive memories that you
Yeah,
have. I wouldn't be doing my job as a longtime athletic
yeah,
director if I didn't ask this question. Between the training and the practices and the travel and the academics and
yeah.
everything else you talked about, your extracurriculars, was there ever a desire on your part, or maybe were you ever approached by another a coach of a different sport at Miami Country Day and say, "Hey, Jordan, have you ever thought about coming out for whatever volleyball, track, or something like that?" Was that ever part of discussion?
it was almost like the basketball players were untouchable, honestly. Like it was just such an empire that had been created, and we practiced year long. Even this during the summer, I would attend the basketball camp as because I wanted to improve my game, and then after we would have after the camp, we'd also have practice. So I was occupied during the summers. Um, like during the season, I was occupied, but my senior year, my brother played lacrosse, so I kind of learned a few things from him. And I was finally able to play my senior year because it was after basketball season. And oh my God, I was amazing. Like I went from competing against because honestly, like Country Day Women's Basketball was a D1 feeder program. So I went from competing against D1 athletes to these women who maybe they've been playing lacrosse for like those their first sport that they ever played, and they just started this year. So I went in, I just played defense because it was I went in mid-season because we had went to states, so I was already late joining the team. And I was running so like I was the slowest on the basketball team. I was the fastest on this team. It was amazing for me at the time of my life. But honestly, as amazing as that one season was with the lacrosse team, I would trade it all again for like the opportunity to play under Coach Slim and Coach O. Because
Right.
mom actually in middle school, my mom did try to push me to play volleyball because I was tall for a middle schooler. And I just saw all the older girls practicing because they would practice on the outdoor courts when it was volleyball season. And I remember seeing them and I was like, I can't do this. Like I can't play volleyball. I need to be out there training with them.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And again, that
Yeah,
love of something, I think any coach in any sport, would want their athletes to have that. We're going to take
yeah.
our first break. We're visiting today with Jordan Fishman. She is currently an undergraduate student at Cornell University. Got some very interesting segments coming up, so please stay with us because we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle for their support of the podcast. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to work for all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. All of our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just loved the tools that Huddle provided that allowed them to enjoy our sports program at the highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to show off your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, or simply share your school's unique history and your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. Vitalsignswalloffame.com.
It's actually funny that you mentioned Huddle because Huddle was my best friend in high school. Um, I Well, actually, every film session that we had, Huddle, we used it like so often. I would watch my own tapes to see how I could improve. That was actually one of the platforms that helped me remove a dip in my shot. So forever thankful to Huddle for that. And then also just like kind of held everyone liable. If you missed a back door, it's on tape. Like you can't make an excuse for that. When we were preparing for competitors, we would use Huddle and kind of break down what they did offensively, what they did defensively, how we kind of have to play defense against their best player. And I brought up Azzy Fudd before in Phoenix. Our entire defensive strategy was actually how to prevent her from scoring and kind of make her teammates live up to the spotlight and embrace that moment and see what they were going to do. And that's honestly essentially why we won that game against Azzy, because we were double teaming her. We knew, I'm making this up right now, but like we knew to only drive her left, for example. And that was just kind of strategic things like that help defense. We will give up that open three if that means stopping Azzy's mid-range shot because she was just that good. So shout out to Huddle again because definitely helped us win a lot of our championships.
Wow, we've had a number of coaches and athletic directors talk about how great Huddle is, and myself included. But I think you could be the first, former player, to give that
Yeah,
shout out. But you're absolutely right. Our athletes, as a football coach, and then as an athletic director, I would hear from our athletes how much they valued and enjoyed that Huddle experience. Thanks for that shout
definitely.
out, Jordan. We'll have to get you
Of
connected
course.
with Huddle down the road. Could be your
Yeah.
first client. For our listeners, if you haven't been paying attention, our guest today is Jordan Fishman. She's currently an undergraduate student at Cornell with aspirations of getting involved in sport management, sport marketing, maybe even the legal side of sports. But right now, she's sharing her story. And Jordan, you left off, with your high school career, Miami Country Day. We've already mentioned you're at Cornell. why Cornell, how Cornell, and what are you doing and what have you done at Cornell that is kind of cool in this world of athletics and sports?
Definitely. So when it was time for the college process, um, I was just touring schools, and honestly, coming from Miami, I've never experienced seasons. So that was a big part of why Cornell, everyone's like, oh my God, you're gonna be freezing. And I was like, no, no, like I want that. This is 4 years of my life. I want to see the trees change color. I really wanted that college campus community that essentially like how UF has, where studying is your main focus, but then you're also just like not in a city, you have kind of that community around you to support you. So that was my kind of why Cornell. Um, but I knew it was time for me to retire after high school, so I did not pursue a basketball career. I did not try to walk on the team. I did consider it, but I was also there was a lot of COVID during freshman year, so it was just kind of it pushed me away even more from even considering it. But that's when I realized that the men's team, I really wanted to get involved. And I was already a member of the ILR Sports Business Society, which provided me with one of my remote internships we'll discuss later. But it was just an amazing, amazing club that has continuous, endless speakers, GMs from teams, our alumni. And I didn't even realize before I actually became manager how incredible our alumni is. For example, there's a gentleman named Jeff Aubrey. He was a former player, and I was actually connected with him through one of our assistant coaches. And he's gone on to accomplish amazing things. He's actually the first union or first executive director of the union for the NBA G League, which didn't exist before. So definitely one of our cool alumni. I reached out to Mark Tatum too, because he's another Cornell alumni. I haven't heard back yet, but he's actually the deputy commissioner of the NBA. So just like those are just cool Cornell alumni, but or Cornell alum, but it's just I was a bit scared going into college because I was like, oh, yes, Cornell's D1, but in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, should I have gone to Duke and really capitalize on like those experiences? But what I realized is, first of all, I can pursue that in law school, which is what my plan is. I know 1L, like you're suffering. So I'm not really considering that as a possibility for my first year. But in my second year, I definitely want to get involved with the NIL deals and kind of the legal like the legal background behind what goes into those deals. And but it all kind of comes from my injury when I was put in a position where I was like, what is there? Like what's life after basketball? And I think now that these college athletes are having like incredible opportunities with insane amounts of money. And they're so young, like many of us don't know how to handle that amount of money at such a young age. And there's many stories I could see with not even athletes, but like famous celebrities, how with bad advisement or just surrounding yourself by the wrong people, that money can go away quickly. So I kind of wanted not to be a financial advisor, but to kind of help these athletes negotiate their deals and find the best sponsorships and partnerships for them where they can kind of be their best selves and get the most out of those deals.
Um, I want to take a deeper dive into that aspect of your sports management program, but I also want you to share with our listeners, being, and you and I talked about this a little bit, being the manager for any team, whether it's a junior high JV team, or in
Yeah,
this case, a Division I men's basketball program. Athletic directors know and coaches know the value of having a great manager. What are some of the
yeah.
things that you do? Are you flying solo? Are you part of a team? How does that work for you at the D1 level as the men's basketball manager?
Definitely. So managers are a lot of the behind the scenes work. That includes on going to every practice too, especially because Cornell was sadly short staffed. Um, that it kind of gave the managers even a larger role because we didn't have an example like another assistant coach that most D1 teams would have. And because it's an Ivy League, there was a certain rule that our roster could actually be bigger than a regular roster because we had a lot of walk-on players. So instead of dealing with like an NBA player, like an NBA size team that's 15 men, we probably had like 20 players on the team. And like that went from analyzing their stats to kind of figure out what they could do better the next game. Or even we use Catapult, which is kind of like the sports bra for men, or it's not for men, but like it's funny to see men wearing a sports bra essentially, which it wasn't, but people made jokes about that. But just seeing their heart rate, like what drills accelerated their heart rate and if they needed to improve. And that was kind of something that we spoke to the trainers about. Um, like maybe if they were like their lateral movements, maybe that's what accelerated their heart rate, how we can kind of tone it down and make sure the players are still in great health and not putting too much pressure on their maybe past injuries and just kind of using that technology, which was really cool. And then also another aspect of being manager is helping the players warm up, helping them train, going in on like hours that where practice wasn't occurring and just making sure that they're still in shape, disciplined, and even helping them with school if they need that. I know there's another hotelier on the team, so I've been able to assist him with some projects and whatnot because I'm older.
You know, you mentioned going to practices. So I think a lot of people, they hear manager and they're thinking, locker room and equipment and travel and things like that.
And I'm
Um,
not washing clothes.
at those practices, seeing the coaches, has there so far been any sort of inkling of, hey, maybe I'd like to drift into the coaching lane, or have you seen enough to say, nah, I don't want to coach?
Definitely. Um, I've never really considered a career in coaching. I've always, I mean, I don't even think I'd get a lot of criticism if I was a coach, honestly, because I came from a very disciplined program where like our coaches would scream. And like I'm very used to that. I honestly love that. I'm like, tell me the harsh truth. Whereas some parents didn't really love that coaching aspect, but I feel like you have to be a player to really realize that like those screams are all love. It's all your coach is passionate about you. How I saw it is like, okay, he's yelling at me, like his attention is on me. You know what I mean? Like he wants me to get better. Like if he's not talking to me, then he just doesn't care about me as like a player on his team. Like I mean, that's like a twisted view, but that's the way I always viewed it. So I think I would have been a very vocal coach, which I don't know if boosters and whatnot would love that on a college level, but yeah, and I never really considered coaching. I think my brain, the way it works, has always been more of like the reading side. So I think that's why I've always wanted to go into contracts. And I think, yeah, that's really it. I've never really considered coaching.
And that's totally fine.
Yeah,
And I love how you shared your perspective. I think, to put a label on it, that type of coach, and I was that type of coach as a football coach.
yeah.
It is considered old school and maybe,
Like I like Coach
yeah,
Carter vibes, like
yeah.
that movie. Like,
And, I think this generation of parents, and it's not right, wrong, good or bad. It's just, this is how it is. Um, for whatever reason, parents want to remove obstacles and remove challenges and not understanding that that's how we all get better. And
yeah,
your comment that, the coach was yelling at me, that was kind of what we heard 100 years ago when I was a student athlete. Well,
yeah,
you need to worry when the coach isn't yelling at you.
yeah.
And
Like
so,
that doesn't mean you're not doing well. That just means like their attention should always be on you because there's always room to improve. So if they're not yelling at you, it's not like you're doing something great.
right,
It's like, oh wow, now I'm really like moving towards the end of the bench, you know, like
right.
their attention is elsewhere on another player to kind of lead this team to
Right.
success.
And I'm going to guess that your coaches, and this is what I tried to do, and I wanted my coaches to do the same thing in a loud voice or a soft voice, whatever they wanted to do. I wanted them to be them, but I would try to yell instruction. I would yell technique. I would yell
Yeah.
encouragement. Come on, you're better than that. I saw you do it
Yeah.
yesterday in practice. So, and I would tell the kids, don't listen to the volume, listen to the content. What am I telling you?
Definitely.
So again, it's all open for discussion, but I'm glad that you enjoyed your experience.
Yeah.
Let's go and take another break. Once again, for our listeners, our guest today is Jordan Fishman. She's currently an undergraduate student at Cornell University with plans to go into the world of sports and athletics. We're going to take that break, but we're coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd also like to say thank you to Home Campus for their support. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, uploading rosters, communicating with everybody in your program. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't work on that every day? Home Campus is going to do all of these things and a whole lot more. It's going to do them better. It's going to do it faster. It's going to give you a lot more time back in your schedule. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. Kids and even parents are on social media today. And if you are not posting shots of your teams, your athletes, and promoting your program, you're really missing out. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you creating world-class marketing content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thank you to Snap Raise. If you've ever used a fundraiser for weeks and weeks and got little, if any, return on investment, stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great applications. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. You're going to be glad you did. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Jordan Fishman. Jordan, you talked a little bit about, some of your goals, post-college, post-law school, all that stuff. But can you share with our listeners some of the unique aspects of your sport management program at Cornell? Maybe the coursework or the projects. What has really helped fan those flames of enthusiasm since you started that program?
Definitely. So what's super interesting about Cornell is that they actually don't have a sports management degree, but I was surprisingly okay with that because after doing a lot of networking, I was actually advised by many people not to do a sports management degree and to actually do a business degree, just in the sense that, well, first of all, this is such a niche industry and there's only a few that actually do make it in. I mean, like you can have a foot in the door, but it's still impossible to fully open that door. Like it's an incredibly hard industry to enter. And so that's why I was advised to go the business route. So you'll still have that business degree. And I actually decided to go a more niche route. And I'm actually in the hotel hospitality school because what I realized is networking and connections are essential. And at least in the hospitality route, there's so much overlap between sports and entertainment. Most agencies do have both sections. And even this, or I'll get into later my internship at Rock Nation, but there was a lot of um, connecting with restaurants and hotels to see if we could host events for our athletes at these venues. And that's why I kind of decided to go more so with the hospitality degree at Cornell, because I was thinking I'm still making those connections. And also, once you kind of are in that industry, it's a small world and everyone knows each other. And as I stated before, our alumni network is incredible, especially in the hotel realm as well. So just to, that was kind of my mindset going in. Um, and it's super interesting because like you still have all financial accounting, managerial accounting, finance that you'll get in the business school. So that's why I kind of went the hospitality route and being able to speak to people. And this is so essential for basketball too, and just dealing with professional athletes is you kind of have to tailor how or like understand your personnel, know that the way you deliver a certain message is going to be received differently by everyone. And the hotel school kind of helped me with that, kind of breaking down how to say something to a certain person and make sure that your message gets delivered exactly how you want it and it's not interpreted in any other way.
That that's a really I'm going to say interesting. I think it's also on point, observation about the connections between sports and entertainment. I heard somebody say this is maybe a year or two ago that athletes, professional athletes, they all want to be rock stars, and rock
Yeah.
stars, they all want to be athletes. But um, you mentioned Rock Nation, and I know you had an experience with them. Athletic directors, one of the things that they're challenged of doing these days is more in the area of promotion. We talked a little bit about it with Gipper, but it's an area that there's really not a lot of training in that traditional coach career. Now you become an AD. So, what are some marketing things that you have already picked up? I'm assuming in part through your maybe it wasn't an internship, but association with Rock
Yeah,
Nation. Can you share how those might help out an AD who's listening now?
definitely. So I interned there last summer and it was the most incredible experience. I think the most valuable essentially is that to kind of help the athlete build their brand young, especially as they progress into college and want to enter and apply for NIL deals. If they already have a brand and a large following, like that's crucial at a young age. And then also, like I said, a business background is so important because you take those marketing classes and the first thing they will teach you on the very first day of your marketing class is find your target market, find your target audience. And that's crucial for these athletes to know as they like step into like this day of like so much digital marketing, what their digital footprint will be, what their audience is going to be. So I feel like as an athletic director, the best thing you can do is kind of guide and advise these high schoolers how to manage definitely also the different legal complications of NIL. I know Florida hasn't yet said that high school players can get NIL deals, but I know many other states are actually open to high school players engaging. So that's definitely a very interesting opportunity that we need to keep looking at as it progresses further.
Now, at Cornell, again, it's Ivy League, but it's still, hey, it's still D1. There's some talent there.
Yeah.
Are you aware of any Cornell athletes in any sport that have worked an NIL deal for themselves?
Definitely a lot of I've seen a lot of athletes do like different like electrolyte campaigns and whatnot. But what I actually found super interesting because I was asked one of the players, I was like, oh, like why haven't you because he had like 16 K followers and I asked him, I was like, why haven't you really engaged with any of the NIL deals? And there's actually certain restrictions that I didn't know about if for Ivy League athletes. I forget the exact rules, but it was like you have to be a certain year to actually engage with those deals, different than a regular college. But I wonder how that will change, especially with Dartmouth campaigning that they want to be considered like employees of the
Right.
school. So I think that's definitely up in the air about what's how that's going to be interpreted, those rules going forward.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I've read about it, I hear about it periodically. Is that a front page news item for you and the Ivy League, or is it just something that's out there that people are kind of waiting to see what happens?
I kind of have two perspectives on the matter because from kind of like an agent perspective, I'm like, that's an incredible opportunity. These universities make so much off these athletes. Like they should get paid. They should get, if they're eligible for benefits, like go ahead. But then also from a coaching perspective, the article that I read was kind of saying where the players can kind of dictate their practice hours around their school schedule. And that kind of drew me back a little because I was like, first of all, as an athletic director, you're managing like five sports. So like you really have like an hourly, like, okay, volleyball, you're in at 6 p.m. You have till 8 to 10, basketball, you're in. So for players to kind of manage their schedule in that sense, I think that puts a lot of stress on the athletic director. And then also I felt like I'm very much, as you could tell, like I love the discipline that my high school coaches gave me. So for me, I like if they're sending a text, be in the gym at 5 p.m. Like I would never be like, no. You know what I mean? Like you figure out your entire schedule around that. So that's my only drawbacks on the matter. I think that's where there's definitely gonna be some pushbacks from the universities, but I'm all for athletes being compensated for what they are doing for the universities. Like honestly, for example, Caitlin Clark, I didn't even know about Iowa sports before her. And that just shows how important these athletes are. And I think more athletes will go to Iowa. That's more tuition for them. That's more audience. Like their stadium is now being completely filmed because of her. And she should definitely be a part of that compensation.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns, and with just
Definitely,
about
yeah.
any decision, there are unintended consequences. I'm from an era, obviously, way back. I went to high school and college in the decade of the 70s, but should athletes be able to have money in their pockets so they can, go get a pizza or go see a movie or fly home if their mom or dad is sick? Absolutely. Should they have
Yeah.
medical, benefits? Yes, they should. So now leaping, way down the continuum of, thousands or millions of dollars, should they be entitled to that? Sure, I guess so. But you hit on a point that, and again, I use my era as an example. Back then, it was
Yeah. Back in the
uh,
day, back in the
it
day.
was it was about being on the team. Boy, I can't wait to put on that jersey. Will I ever be good enough to play for the varsity?
Yeah.
Those dreams. And now, and I'm generalizing tremendously. I realize this. Now it's how many reps am I going to get? You know, what's my
Yeah.
playing time going to be? What time is practice going to start?
Yeah.
And I don't know if those ideas are, let my words, compatible
Yeah.
with, athletics and, all that stuff. But that's a completely different show. But I'm glad you brought that up,
Yeah.
athletes dictating practice time.
I
Um,
definitely think it depends on the athletes that you want as from a collegiate standpoint. Those are the athletes that you're bringing in. I think if you bring in a bunch of athletes that have that, like the right mindset, I think it can completely still work. But you need those athletes that are very dedicated to it. But like, you know that when you're recruiting them. So I think that kind of can help with that dilemma in that sense.
right. Well, and that's the old, I'll say, joke that when you're recruiting, you're patting them on the back, and after they get on
Yeah.
campus, you're kicking them in the butt.
Yeah.
So great stuff. It's great to hear from, again, your perspective. We're going to take a break, but we are going to come back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more, but I'm going to. Go to hometownticketing.com. Their team will show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for your athletic events, but for things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part: every school gets assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to say thank you to the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. This affordable 20-month program not only gets you your master's degree, it also allows you to complete 11 NIAAA leadership training courses to go toward your CAA or your RAA. You're also going to be part of a nationwide network in athletic administration. To get started, all you have to do is go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an AD was our Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Jordan Fishman, high school athlete, undergraduate college basketball manager, future change agent in the world of sports and athletics. Jordan, we should have done this in the last segment, but you talked about the importance of building your network. And that's one of the things we try to do with the podcast. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, maybe pick your brain a little bit, or simply add you to their network, what's the best way that they can do that?
Yeah, I'd absolutely love that. The best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. Definitely, I'm very active on the platform.
Okay. So again, that's Jordan Fishman, just like it sounds. Go to LinkedIn, reach out. When you send that connection message, type in a note, let her know what you're doing, and add her to your network and let her add you to yours, to hers. There we go. Jordan, one of the things that we try to do with this podcast is the idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you've experienced as a high school student athlete in an elite program with a national footprint, as a undergraduate student in an Ivy League school, and also some pretty impressive internship experiences? What are some best practices that you've seen kind of in the area of leadership that you can share with our listeners?
Definitely, just going straight off based off connections. Um, Worst thing someone can say is no or not respond. I actually got my last internship at Open Sponsorship by DMing Tarena, who was head of HR at the time. And she actually didn't respond on my first message. And I was like, well, no, I'm going to send another one. Like I said, worst thing she could say is no. And that's actually how I got that next remote internship. That was an amazing experience. And then I'm going to continue after this summer. And then another leadership advice I would give is be yourself, especially if you're a high school athlete. Like I said earlier in this podcast, building your brand from a young age is so important. Even if that means like making those cringy TikToks that you'll get bullied for by your friends in high school, do it. Like who just graduated or not graduated Duke. He stayed for 1 year, but Jared McCain, he gets ridiculed all the time on social media, and yet he continues to be himself, continues to post what he wants to post, continues to wear nail polish, which is, I would say, like some people would consider that unconventional, but he actually got a nail polish partnership through that. And like I said, just be yourself, don't care what others think. And as a player on a team, as an athlete, I forget who just said this in a recent interview, but kind of when you first get there, kind of be quiet, be more of a fly on the wall and absorb what the veterans, what the older people at whether it's a team or company, kind of absorb the information that they're telling you. And then from there, you can kind of gain your own voice and have those mentors. And just kind of listen to the vets, like they're wise, our industry leaders. They've been doing it for a while. So every internship that I've had, I've always walked into their office, the CEO, whoever it may be, and asked, later this week, can we sit down? Like, I'd love to just pick your brain and see how I can get to the seat that you're in. So,
Well, I love that. Great advice and applicable in just about any field.
yeah.
Um, Now, you and I spoke a little bit before we started recording today. You're currently doing a pretty cool internship. So share with our listeners a little bit about that.
Definitely. So I'm working with a judge currently this summer in complex litigation. And I definitely saw it as an opportunity because I want to go into sports law, as an opportunity to kind of develop more of an acumen in like contractual negotiations and be able to read those contracts and kind of understand that legal jargon. And even intellectual property, it's playing a huge role in the NIL deals. So I really wanted to this summer pursue my legal career, but kind of use everything that I've done with my past internships and reading a contract like how how can this be applicable to like an MBA contract in the future, or how one word off in a contract will literally be able to change anything if you go to court, and how important every little detail is and how important every mistake can be and the implications of that.
So I know you've only been doing it for a while, but anything just really surprise you or impress you during your experiences so far?
I think more so the way that lawyers speak, I think even if they aren't confident, you don't know that. Like they just go up with so much confidence to the stand that that can be applicable to and like any career. Like I wish I had that confidence when I played basketball. I think I would have actually been a much more consistent scorer. Like just realizing that everything isn't as, I mean, in law it definitely is as serious as it is, but kind of not putting that pressure on yourself and just you prepared for it. Like lawyers, they're preparing for these cases and they go up with that confidence because they put in all that hard work and their effort and they know what they're talking about. And the same can be related to sports. Like you've put in all that time, shooting, like you put in all that extra effort, running, training, and whatnot. And you just kind of have to trust yourself that in that moment, that everything that you've been doing will lead to that moment and will lead to success.
Oh, absolutely. You know, that preparation, I mean, your coaches, they're putting time into that game plan. So when they present it, they're not going to sound, I don't know if this is really going to work.
Yeah,
No, they're going to come in, I assume, fully prepared. So great analogy. Jordan, this has just been a lot of fun and pretty cool spending some time with you, but we're
definitely.
not
Yeah.
done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an athletic director, but you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. So we're going to take our final break here from Athletic Surveys. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director, or we could say a brand new leader, on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their
All right.
toolbox. So let's take that final break. And when we come back, we're going to see what Jordan Fishman puts in her new athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox portion of our podcast. You know, athletic directors already get feedback, but usually it's from a very small group of complainers, the people that want to gripe about everything. Well, athletic surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that support your program. And that information is tremendously valuable, especially when you're speaking to a frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Jordan Fishman. Again, you've heard her background, and I'm excited to hear, maybe in a couple of years her future because I know she's going to bright places. But Jordan, right now, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director, a brand new leader on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put three things in the toolbox. So, what three items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
My first one is definitely support your athletes. Um, whether that's scheduling, making sure they have the time to practice, but I think it's also making sure that you provide them with the resources to help balance school and basketball. And then also just help making sure that their bodies are well prepared and well equipped for these games, making sure the training staff or even like the training equipment is up to date, and maybe like even bands, like that's such like cheap implementation, but is so effective, like using those workout bands. And my other tip, or my other addition to the toolbox, would definitely be, as I said earlier, know your clientele. If you're a high school athletic director, you're dealing with young kids who, like, a lot of them could potentially be emotional. I know I definitely was a bit more emotional back in high school than I am now, especially the way I take things in. And just talking to different players, different students differently, and knowing their background and everything they did to kind of be where they are now, and helping support them through their journey. And then my final one would definitely just be adapting to current times. We're now living in a society where AI, I think, is like creeping up on us. So I think as an athletic director, kind of get creative, see how you can implement AI to helping these athletes, and whether that's preventing injuries, or helping like grow, or even if it's like using AI to create a schedule for them, to be like, okay, you're in school from 8 to 3:30. In this schedule, you have an hour till practice, and based on like your current history, you can get this problem set done in 30 minutes or something. And then you have your practice, and kind of building that schedule for athletes, or helping them maybe find, if you're in a state where NIL partnerships are legal for high school athletes, using AI to kind of surveillance what opportunities are there for athletes, and being they're so young, so just kind of help guide them.
I think you're the first person that we've ever had that's mentioned AI specifically, and you're right. It's here, but I love the way that you couched it in, being adaptable, especially when you and I were talking about those old school coaches. I
Yeah.
love it. Great stuff.
I have that old school discipline mindset, and
Yeah.
then be able to adapt and utilize AI to your best advantage, especially when watching film against opponents.
Yeah. No, no, yeah, I love it. Great stuff. Jordan, we did this before, but let's do it again. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, add you to their network, or just pick your brain, and listeners, I think you got a budding resource here. What's the best way they can get a hold of you?
The best way to reach me is definitely through LinkedIn. I'm very active, and I would love to connect with anyone that's in the industry already or considering entering it. I think the more you know, it's the better. Like I said, it once you make it in the industry, I think everyone kind of knows each other. Because a lot of the time when I end a networking call, I actually ask them like, "Oh, like, is there anyone else that you could connect me with, just to try to grow my network?" And I've actually sometimes got into like a networking web where it's like a lot of familiar
Yeah.
faces. So I think just kind of get your name out there, even if it's a one-time call, send them a happy New Year's text, like just continuously stay in contact with everyone that you've met.
No, great advice. Great stuff. Well, Jordan, all the best with the internship this summer, with the judge, and with your budding career. And let's definitely stay in touch. We're going to get you back on the podcast
Definitely.
down the road.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, you bet. For listeners, we want to say thanks to you for listening, and just remind you that we upload all of the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, interviews and sharing best practices So we hope you come back for the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.